Hello, everyone.
Hello. This is Marketing Insights with Murie Design Group, and we're all stuck here in Coronaville, and James and I decided that we don't get a chance to really sit and meet with any companies right now since we are stuck in our homes like everybody else, and we thought it would be good to kind of help companies that are new, that are small, that probably need help with marketing ideas, that don't necessarily have the resources of a large scale agency, kind of doing it on their own, or maybe there's just not a playbook in mind that you're using. So James and I thought we would put our heads together and come up with some information and some insights. And we put out a series of articles, and these videos that we're putting out will follow the articles, and as well as give our own opinions along with those articles. The articles are a little more formal than we are, I guess.
It's always better to have the one-on-one communication, we feel. So it's just kind of an add-on.
Right. So without further ado, I would like to introduce the other guy here, James Albert. He's CEO of Murie Design Group, and tell us a little bit about us. Tell whoever's watching the video about your experience in marketing.
So we've marketing with Murie Design Group has been going on for close to 32 years now. I've been there for 21 years and been a lot of different positions there, and recently purchased it. So I have about 21 years worth of experience. Before that, I was a graphic designer and started out as a graphic designer here. So it comes with a little more of the experience from that graphic art side. But let's hear more about Mac.
Well, I was going to say, so the fun part about that story is you started out unpaid as just a walk-in, right?
Yeah, he didn't have a position, so I told him that I'd work for free until he found out that wasn't legal. So then he found a position for me. Yeah.
You got
So I think it was about a week. I think there was a week there that I was working for free. So
yeah, okay. Well, so for myself, actually, you were my first boss out of college. Unfortunately for you, I was hired as a junior level graphic designer and worked for about a year and a half, about a year with you guys, and then kind of bounced along. My career trajectory took me into marketing management roles, outside of doing graphic design, also video, also audio, also illustration, I did a lot of social media. Yeah. Did that, been working in marketing for about 15 years. In the meantime, collected my MBA in marketing and kind of have diverged from just the pure graphic design area. And now I'm back with you guys and working as the vice president of business development.
Yes.
So for this week, we put out an article on building a marketing plan for small and medium businesses. And it's one of those things that when a company first starts and they create a product, or they have an idea, or they're looking to get funding, or even if it's just somebody working in a small company as the marketing person, a lot of the times, I notice it most of the time, I'm sure you do too, that a lot of times they come to us and it's like, well, what's your marketing plan? And you get that.
Yeah, haven't thought about it, wasn't even considering it. And it might be because they felt it's too difficult. And really, I think there's really ways to simple it down to where just kind of observe and really kind of look at your own company, and then you'll be able to easily fill one of these out.
Right. And we've had experience with that as far as getting the time to plan. I mean, that's kind of that's one of the
things. You have to make the time.
Right. So, and that's something that we notice a lot is you have to just create the time. Your opinion, what should you set aside to sit down and come up with a plan?
As far as on the marketing side, I would definitely go down through, make a list of any ways that you, any channels that you wish to possibly pursue. If it's influencers, if it's possibly radio, TV, if it's print ads, if it's in any kind of marketing that you think you're going to do. If it's even like, I want to go sponsor some golf tournaments, I want to do whatever you're thinking might impact or help market your company, write them all down and then kind of sort them out as you go. But really kind of just figure out any kind of avenue you think would help or benefit your company.
Right. Well, to dive in deeper as far as setting aside time and moving forward, the how tends to hang a lot of people up as far as what am I doing and like, how do I put this together? Because it's sort of this big document, right? Whenever anybody hears you need to make a marketing plan, it's daunting. So like, I don't know how to do that. There's a lot of guides out there. There's a lot of templates out there. There's even one thing that I've stumbled across is the one-page marketing plan. That one is developed by what's his name? I gotta find it now. Alan Dibb. Alan Dibb writes a book called The One-Page Marketing Plan, and it dives into a lot of the same things that we're going to talk about too. We're all marketers, and these guys have a philosophy of marketing is really not that hard, and it's easy to say, especially when you have experience, that it's not that hard. But you're really just finding out who likes your stuff, finding out where those people go, and getting your word to them, and that's in a way that makes
them simple as that. Yep.
Yeah. And I really love oversimplifying things because it really drives people nuts. I do that a lot. So yeah, the ideas behind it and the complexities of it, it's really not that complex and it's really not that hard. So as far as how to create one of the first things you need, and this is sort of outside of what builds a marketing plan and a little more into that area of what builds a business plan, is a mission statement. And you've done a few mission statements in your time. What would you advise on developing that?
Well, developing the mission statement or developing a marketing plan around your mission or vision?
Well, I view it as a starting point. So yeah. Mostly just diving into the mission statement side.
Well, I feel like that's just part of direction. Like, you know, the anytime you go on a trip, you got to know where you're going. And I really feel like that vision and mission, that's what that puts out there. And then you can wrap around your route, where you're going to stay and everything else around it. And it starts with that. What's the destination?
Exactly. So the few key things that we've sort of outlined in the how to build a marketing plan is create your mission, which is what are you selling and what is your unique position? You know, are you making teddy bears and you have the greatest teddy bear on the planet? And, you know, what does that teddy bear mean to you? And why is it unique in the market? As far as, let me stutter my way through this.
Hey, we're not professional actors, right? So this is all what it's about.
No, we are. This is I'm drinking beer in my office. That's about how this is going to go. So the other thing you have to identify is who you're competing against. I don't know of any company in the world that doesn't have a competitor at all. You're going to have competitors, and chances are they're going to be doing things that you can't, or that they're more capable of. And you kind of have to find out where you lie within that. You have to do the research.
I mean, you don't find any single real estate agent that's not going to look at the market. You have to, you know, I mean, they're going to, what do the houses next to you look like? What are the prices for that? You really have to see what your market is. And that's part of the marketing.
Yeah. And so along with that, you have to look at what the target markets are for your product or service. And you have to look at the market dynamics. You have to look for the demographic needs. You have to look for current industries, or the sales in the current industry. You have to find benchmarks and weaknesses. Those are all really, really big marketing words, right? Like I notice it all the time. We throw out words all the time that make people just get that 1,000-mile stare. Like, and it can be as basic as like, as soon as we start talking about DPI or something.
Or people throw them out to me and I don't know what they are.
Yeah. Like everybody loves jargon. It's a better way to simplify it. When you're putting together a marketing plan, you got to figure out what you're selling, who wants to buy it, who else sells what you're selling, and how you're going to get that message to people. That's basically it. And that's where I think that things like the one-page marketing plan are appealing. I don't think I could ever distill anything that I do into one page for a marketing plan. But
and I also feel like it's a start, just like anything. I
it is
think
a
you
good
start there, and then you find out you need a more complex one, or maybe your investor's looking for more, or maybe, you know, the venture capitalist company that's helping you with the marketing is looking for more of a marketing plan, or you need to really dig down to figure out what your budgets are. That can all happen in time, but the first part is just kind of like baby steps, you know, just get a start out there. And this what Mac wrote, I think, really does kind of help you just get a start.
Yeah. And for sure, it's something that to dive into, to start with. The thing about a marketing plan is you're always going to change it. Well, if you're using your marketing plan, a lot of people,
right?
I'm guessing anybody who's probably watching, or anybody that ends up watching, I'm sure you've written one. I'm sure you were told that you should write one, and it's probably sitting in the bottom of a desk or in a file that you haven't opened in 4 years, or something like that. It's important to go through there. And chances are, if you have set it into a drawer or something like that, it wasn't built for you in the first place, or maybe it wasn't as dialed in as it could be. Maybe it needs simplified. So that's kind of something that we'll get into here in a sec, as far as how to make it better for you and to get it up and rolling.
Yes.
So that it doesn't sit and collect dust I mean, they make a great coaster, but you know.
Well, and it's the growth of, it's a working document. It really is, that with the growth of your company, and as it goes, you're going to need that. Same with, like, you know, the company handbook probably has been adapted. That's why they put dates on them. And I feel like that's similar to your marketing plan. It should have dates so you can go down through and see the last time you updated it and really work through it.
Definitely. So I guess we should probably dive into the structure, the overall, what the heck is needed in a marketing plan. The overall outline, it's very kind of standardized in the industry. Some of these things can be distilled into smaller bits. Some people go without a few of these pieces, but these are the most essential parts of a marketing plan. And that goes executive summary, situational analysis, the SWOT, which is your analysis of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, the marketing goals and objectives, the marketing strategy, marketing implementation, and the evaluation and control. Again, those sound like really, I mean, they can be intimidating words. They can feel large, like, especially when you start talking about implementation or something like that. We're hoping to talk about this in a way that makes it sound not so like, I don't know what that is. So.
And it's kind of one of those too, where at any point you could probably just Google one of those words and find out, and they, you know, it's readily out there. So
yeah, the complex words are just one Google away. So
yeah, there you go, exactly.
Hopefully that's something. If you can't figure out the Google, we've got other things to talk about before we talk about a marketing plan.
Yes.
So well, the initial part, executive summary. So this part of the marketing plan is it's very self-explanatory. It's the entry level of, it's the overview, right? So this is the executive summary, is where if Joe Schmo can walk in off the street and grab your paper, and in a couple seconds they have a basic idea of who you are, what you're selling, who your market is, and what you're going to do about it. And that's basically it. Like, this should be a paragraph at most. Like,
it's a summary.
It's a summary. Yeah. You know, don't write a
summarize.
Exactly. So it is, executive summary is, boss, definitely the easiest part about it. So the situational analysis, there's your situation in business is broken down into 3 different environments. So you have a internal environment, you have an external environment, and you have a customer environment. Now, you could argue that the external environment really is the customer environment, but we break those down differently. So your internal environment, your internal
that's a totally new environment, is the environment.
We are professionals.
You know what? We're kind of in a den environment right now. We're all just in our dens, and
yeah. My entire family's getting cabin fever at the moment. So How is your yours holding up, by the way? Everybody.
It's holding up by threads right now. It's one of those where the kids don't necessarily want to do what we tell them to. So
Yeah. Have you hit the TV point where it's like, I don't care what you watch?
I've been tracking their screen time.
Yeah.
And I told them that they have to do as much of cleaning or something else as their screen time, just to make sure that they don't overdo the screen time.
I've tried that too, but I found it to be like a drug. It's like every time I leave the room, he's back getting his fix. And it's like,
Yeah, I've had to take away the electronic devices.
Yeah, me too. I've done that. Somehow he drilled a hole through the floor, got through, found it.
Well, I question you, Mac, on this one. Is this similar to the culture, like internal culture of a company, like when we talk about the internal environment, or is that?
Yeah, and so that factors in
onboarding and that kind of stuff with HR, or?
It can. If you want to dive that far in, you definitely can. What it really comes down to is what resources do you have? Like, who are the people that can execute your marketing tasks? What are they going to use to execute, your marketing task? They have some beat up old computer that can't run anything except for like Adobe or Microsoft Paint. Or do
this
they
is kind of where it overlaps a little bit with the business plan too. I mean, it's just to keep business going and everything else. It's one of those where, and marketing plays such a big part in business. That's kind of why I think it's situated here differently.
Yeah. Well, and that's what gets kind of hard when somebody does have to do a business plan and a marketing plan. So a business plan you do, because if you have to acquire any kind of investor or anything like that, you have to have a business plan. And if you do a marketing plan along with that, the redundancies are pretty heavy between the two. It's just the business plan, it focuses on the running of the business, and the marketing plan focuses on the running of the marketing. But within those two, they intertwine so heavily that you're going to be doing a lot of copy and paste. That's what you'll be doing. So your internal environment is exactly kind of that. It's who do you have, what do you have to do it, how much money do you have to do it, and what are your goals? So that's kind of your internal environment. You have your customer environment, which is who can buy your product and what do they need. So the whole goal of having a product or a service or anything like that is you're fulfilling a need. And in order to do that, you have to look at your customer environment, and your customer environment is exactly that. Is who is the customer, and what do they need, and what need are you fulfilling, and how does your product or service fulfill that need? And then your external environment is what's happening in the market. So what other companies are doing, what's the economic conditions like right now. We're stuck in our homes and not showering until 3 and hanging out and trying to get our kids to do homework and stuff. There's also political restrictions. Those are the industries that get impacted by political restrictions are usually, again, oversimplifying, but you'll find that a lot in your financial sectors. You'll find that anything that has to do with insurance, banking, real estate, or any contractual kind of thing like that, there's a lot of political, environmental things that you have to keep track of. There's the legislative risk, if you will. And then there's also technological factors that can come in. If there's a new kind of disruptive technology that comes into the industry that you have to keep track of. So those are all things that you have to keep track of with your environment. And all of this, I know we've talked for a while on it, but this is your situational analysis. So
your companies, you evaluate your own company and how it relates to all those environments.
Right. And a lot of the times this gets difficult because people get the opinion of like, oh, well, I don't have an internal environment, or sort of looking at it like there's not really anything to examine. There's always something to examine in your environment. Like, it doesn't matter whether you are pounding nails or whether you are selling a financial product or if you've invented some kind of new gadget. There's always those 3 parts of your environment. So those things are important in your marketing plan, and they're going to change over time. So that's why it's important to always update the plan. The next piece of the marketing plan is the SWOT. It's my personal favorite just because it's SWOT.
Well, and it's organized and easy to fill out. I have to agree. This is one of the ones I start with sometimes, but
same here. I just like it. It's and an interesting part
form a
is
SWAT team. Oh no.
yes. Could you wear uniforms? You
just want to dress up.
I do. I want to walk into a meeting and be like, I don't know what I would do. I would just look all official and scary.
Yeah.
Wear the ballistic shield. I don't know.
Well, I really think that this one, the thing with the SWOT I also like is it's not just, talking about your strengths. You really have to focus on some of your weaknesses too, which isn't an easy thing to do. Some people it's easier to see those, but it's hard to really point out and be honest with yourself and your own company. What are your weaknesses?
Right, and I think you're exactly right. I think that that's really hard for a lot of companies to do, because every company has significant weaknesses. It's not that like, oh, you might have a couple of things wrong. Like, every single company has huge weaknesses, and if you don't know what those are, one, you don't know where your strengths are in turn, and two, you don't know how to either correct or improve, or you're going to keep making the same mistakes over and over, and that's
right.
You see that a lot with, we see that a lot with companies we work with. It is like and it's hard to be like, hey, so you don't do so well here. Like,
well, and it's not even just like small and new companies too. Some of the large companies sometimes don't evaluate that and just get a little miss, and that's just part of it. So it's just constantly looking at that. I think helps. Plus, a lot of the directions some of the larger companies, they, it's not them who are making that call on some of these, and so they just kind of have to do what they're told rather than actually creating them. So a lot of times it does help to even have your own, even if you're a large enterprise company, to kind of create your own, just so you can kind of get a feel of how your marketing can be done within your own organization, even though your company might have their own that they've done, because it's just kind of a different take on it.
Yeah, so almost like kind of a departmental kind of,
yeah.
It's always advised to do that kind of thing, like kind of a refresh, a monthly kind of thing, where you evaluate what you're performing well at, and because a SWOT is something where you evaluate constantly, and you're going to have weaknesses, and so it's something that you need to circle back around, like, oh, I didn't do that very well this month. This is how I can improve upon that. A lot of people don't take that time to do that.
And I feel like the opportunities part is a fun one, especially for a creative agency like us, because that's where we are always looking for new ways to be creative, or new ways to market. So some of these opportunities, it's really kind of looking at your company in different ways. And now with threats, we've got a whole bunch of new ones. I mean, I never would have put the pandemic down as a threat for marketing, years ago, but these days, yes, that's there.
Yeah. Well, what's hard with that too is you look at it's in a pandemic threat, its influence on marketing. Marketing is always the first thing to get cut, right? Like, as soon as any kind of threat happens to any kind of economic condition, the heads roll in marketing. Like, it's the best time to find employees in marketing, because everyone gets blown out of the water.
It's funny too, because like they showed throughout history that the best time to market and really push marketing is during a downturn. And it's funny how like that's one of the first things to go on a lot of corporations. And it's one of those where I think it's maybe expenses they look at as an extra expense, not a necessary expense. And that's where I think we know for sure that marketing is definitely a necessary expense, even though some people don't, some companies don't look at it that way.
Right. They kind of, well, it's this retraction of marketing where it's, you should be spending, but it's one of those like smarter, not harder things. Like,
exactly.
So like, yeah, you retract your marketing spend, but you can spend smarter instead of blowing like how many $1,000s on that TV campaign or something like that. Like, you don't
and really look, and that comes down to looking at what that threat and the opportunities are, because if you evaluate what is going on, then you can create a new type of marketing. You can, like even what we're doing. I do think there's ways that it creates opportunity depending on the threat even. So
absolutely. So, and to recap, because I don't know if we jumped in very clearly, but we were in a SWOT analysis. You're looking at your internal factors, which are your strengths and weaknesses. You're looking at your external factors, which are your opportunities and threats. That's what makes up the acronym thing of SWOT. And so where you're looking at strengths, it's obviously what you do well and what you do is specifically better than your competitors. And your weaknesses are specifically towards what your competitors do better than you. So you can talk about a weakness where it's like, I don't do very well on social media. But if every one of your competitors also is terrible at social media, it's not so much a weakness, but it's something of where you can put it down into opportunities. Your external factors are your opportunities and threats. Opportunities are areas where you have not explored or possibly your competition is not explored. Usually, if you want to target it better, you would look at your competitors and where can I go into a market where my competitors haven't, pending looking at if your target market is there, because if you go somewhere where your target market isn't, it doesn't matter. And then threats are things that can possibly negatively impact your company from outside, like what we're talking about with a global pandemic that shuts down the entire economy and leaves us all sitting in our basements in our underwear for the next 3 months.
I noticed you haven't stood up yet, so.
I have not. I'm definitely in my underwear.
Drink a beer.
I'm going to have my beer and sit in my underwear. My kids are so scared to come into my office.
Well, I know.
Go ahead.
I know we probably don't have to go down through each one of these. I think that we're going to try to, though. But
yeah.
But there's at any point, I think that's the thing that I would like to probably tell companies, especially new companies, more than anything, is almost to kind of like if you don't have it yet, move past it, come back. Maybe something further on will help develop what maybe one of the opportunities are or something. So it should not be daunting and it should be fun, because if you think about this, what comes out of this is then budgets and then actions. And I really do think that that's kind of the fun part, when you actually get to see some of these marketing objectives come to fruition. So and I know that's coming up. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're all good. You can't skip ahead here, man. We got a strict thing.
I'm reading all the way down the bottom.
I gotta go.
Okay, good. We're done. It was good seeing you. I just hang up and let you finish.
I can't keep track. I don't concentrate on things like that. Well, so I was gonna say you specifically have done a lot of this. And I know we talked about a competitive market, but what's the most basic way to find out who you're competing against?
Yeah, the issue there is you might find an industry.
Let's narrow it down. Let's say local, because national or something like that becomes a crap show, right? Like,
well, the one nice thing about national is then you can see more of what others of your size company are doing, because there's just more people doing things. But with the local industry, and as far as your true competitors, a lot of times you know them just because you're doing a price quote against them. You know, like say if we're putting in a bid for a state job, then you'll see who those same competitors are going for that. But that's one way to kind of find out who they are. But then to really look into them, I think that you should go beyond just Googling their website. I think you have to kind of either follow them, see what they put out there. You also have to, and that's nothing bad. It's not like, I'm hoping that some of our competitors will follow this and see this, because I do think that it's just kind of part of knowing what's out there. And if you don't know people thought we didn't exist, and that's was interesting to me, because I'm thinking myself, we're one of the oldest here in the valley, and yet there was a rumor going around, and because we didn't have as much local clients, it turned out to be this rumor started. And I feel like that's the kind of thing that you can't control, but it also gives you an idea of what your reputation is in the local and regional and global market. Is something you need to kind of understand about yourself while you're looking for what other people's reputations are and what they're look at their work. See what kind of, if they're are they marketing in one of the I'm trying to think of those little flyers that come around, the mailers.
Right.
I pick those up all the time just to see what some of our clients' competitors are doing. I know that when we were working on stuff for one of our large clients, I have boxes and boxes of competitive stuff. When we were doing retail food, I was grabbing packaging from all the different kinds to see what is out there. And I think that's what you kind of have to do. You really have to go and discover.
Right. I know that, and you're way better than I am at that. You catch those kind of things as far as like, oh, there's a flyer for that competitor. Like, I didn't even see that.
Well, and the way they say something or the way they do something, and sometimes it's even just a little phrase gets me like, oh, that's a fun way of doing it. So who knows? You can kind of and then that just helps us add value to our clients.
Yeah, and I think another way in adding to what you're saying is a way to identify who your competitors are and what they're doing is look at the places where you want to advertise and see what's already out there.
Great one.
You're exactly right. Don't just go to their website and look what they're doing on their website. They have marketing initiatives too. You have to see what they're doing for their marketing initiatives. The service environment is a little different because a lot of the times, like let's say financial advisory, where there is collateral and there are advertising campaigns, but a lot of the times those come from a national kind of corporate area and they get handed to advisors. You could like infiltrate a financial advisory seminar from a competitor or something like you can do that. And I would actually say that's a good idea if I was looking at competitive analysis, but it becomes harder in service industry things, I think.
You ever ran into any spying, have you? Like where they would sit in and try to go through a conference just to hear what the other person's doing? Have you seen any of that?
That's exactly what I'm saying that you could possibly do is just sit there. Because, I mean, if somebody does it well,
yeah, so a bank goes and applies at another bank just to see what they're, yeah.
There's things that you can do on that level. To follow ethical boundaries, I guess, is
Okay, so that's something similar in our market. So we compete against freelancers, we compete against large agencies, we compete against digital agencies, we compete against in-house agencies, and now we compete against online design services. And so that was one where I was curious to know what's Fiverr do that we're not doing. And you can read a little bit about what their capabilities are, but it's almost better to go, hey, I'm gonna spend $100 and see how this process works. So I actually contributed to one of our competitors that way, just to kind of get to know more about it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you have to be aware of what's going on around you. So those types of things, when we're talking about looking at your competitive market, that's exactly what you should be doing is dig in, look at who you're competing against and kind of see what they have going on. So next up on our list, and I know that was a bit of a backtrack, but I wanted to like
or sidetrack or front track. It was we tracked.
Yeah. So forming your marketing goals and objectives. Some of these are a bit boilerplate. This is one of those that's like you need to do it, but it gets difficult because a lot of times you're like, I want to increase sales by 100%. Like,
it's good. That's a goal. That is a goal.
I want a unicorn that farts rainbows. Like that's awesome. Yeah. Like, so it's when you set your goals and objectives, do something that is relevant and that is attainable. Like don't just shoot for the stars on this. Like if you have some kind of like crazy goal, like that's great. Everybody has crazy goals, but actually having a goal that is attainable and or maybe look at last year's pattern. Like if you had a 15% increase last year, maybe you look for a 15% increase in the next year, or knowing that gains are not always perpetual. Maybe after a 15% gain year, you look at a 5% gain and set the target. Like look at your past work and try to build off of that. Don't just come up with some kind of astronomical deal. It's good to push yourself with goals. Don't get me wrong, but
and maybe even doing a kind of a short-term, long-term.
Yeah.
and some of the long terms can be a little less attainable, but you still need to have, they can't be something that you're not capable of ever hitting. So
Right. Exactly. And well, and one thing to note too is when you say goals and objectives, um, goals and objectives are two different things, and they're easy to say, like, oh, follow your goals and objectives, and people lump them together. But goals tend to be this vague. A goal is this kind of like, I want to save the world, or I want to put this
end world hunger,
or put this toy into the hands of every child, or enrich the users of my product. Like, that's a goal. And an objective is, I want to sell 500 units to children in the Pacific Northwest by the end of the year. Like, that's an objective. So when you come up with your goals and objectives, make sure to separate those. And honestly, you can take care of your goals and objectives very quickly in like one sentence. It's not a huge deal. So that part of the marketing plan should be fairly quick to take care of. Although we could probably talk about it for a bit of time. So your strategy. This I'm going to read from the document because we've been going for a little bit here, so I'm losing track of stuff. So I'm going to read.
Well, here's the P's. We're getting into the P's.
Yes, we are going into the P's, and the P's are great. And the P's that James is talking about is product, price, promotion, and placement. It's kind of what used to encompass marketing. A lot of people argue now that there's like 20 P's, and there's another one that says like 16 P's. It depends on who you listen to, but the base is product, price, placement, promotion. So that's saying what you sell, how much you sell it for, where it goes, and how you get people to buy it. And all of those things become kind of the most important parts of marketing if you break everything down to super simplified forms. So your strategy is those things. So it is, what do you sell? And your product doesn't have to be something that you make. If you're a service person, then it is, what is your service? And if you look at your price, it's what's your hourly rate? How do you get people to look at it? What do you sell at, and what does it cost? And of course, hopefully you've already taken into like your cost of production so that you're making a profit. That's always good. And your placement is, where do people encounter it? So this is not so much of hopefully an assumption where you say like, everybody gets my thing at the gas station, and like nobody looks at it because it's not really in a good place at the gas station. You need to.
It's not set apart.
Right,
like all the other things in the gas station.
Yeah, and it's like you got to know where. It's not where it exists; it's where people actually buy it. Like you can't target gas stations if everybody buys your product online. It might be in gas stations, but if they're you should know your numbers a little bit. So along with that, and then your promotion. So a promotion can be anything: buy one get one free. 25% discount. Everybody has promotions. What gets people to buy?
Limited time offer.
Yep. So then, and that's the essentials of a strategy. You can write that also down very quickly, right? So even if you just label it product, price, placement, promotion, and just put a sentence in there. Then your implementation is, how does the rubber hit the road? That's kind of where we live, right? Is a lot of the marketing production. So we're on the implementation side. So as far as how you do it is,
we're implementation tools. You're a tool.
I'm a tool.
Sorry.
I never thought to tell my mom I wanted to be a tool when I grew up.
Exactly.
So implementation is like, how are you going to execute? It's part of the strategy. It encompasses the strategy, but it's more of, it's the how of the strategy, right? It's like, what am I going to do to execute these things? Also, this is a thing of, you can take care of it very quickly. That's kind of why we wrote this thing out the way we did, so you can take care of this stuff very quickly. The last part is evaluate and control. So this is looking at what you're doing, where it's working, where it's not working, and adjusting. So as far as what have you looked at in the past for, and by you, I mean we, and us, important things to look at for evaluation and control?
So I'm thinking of quite a few companies that, they have their KPIs, and a lot of what they,
Let's break that down. KPIs is
key performance indicators.
Right.
And
just
so, yes. And so
it's the marketing jargon. It blows people away. Like, I don't know what a KPI is.
That's a very good point. But in any kind of, a lot of our marketing managers have to follow those, use those, and then that's also how they kind of market themselves within the organization. Some of the small businesses, and then even some of our nonprofits, they still need to look at those and evaluate for what you can. I mean, it's one where find anything where you can measure, because that's really where, if you're never measuring anything, you have no idea how you're doing month to month. And even finding, I was at an event here recently where they actually were able to show some ways to potentially look at some KPIs where it'll show you some forward thinking, rather than, instead of just dealing with like, well, here was last month's, and then this month has to be done before I can look at last month's and evaluate. It's really kind of showing indicators that leading indicators that show how your business might be going in a month or 2 or 3 months. So that's where I personally I'm drawn to right now, the idea of, if you can kind of not necessarily predict the future, but see a little bit more into the future, it just helps your company plan. So.
Exactly. Yeah. And when you're talking about key performance indicators, a lot of them are channel specific. Channel is the avenue that you're marketing. So social media is a channel, magazine advertising is a channel, and anything that you do is a channel. And within those are these things, key performance indicators. So if you were looking at social media, your key performance indicators are your likes, your views, your impressions, which consider impressions, clicks, your click-throughs, your conversions. Each one of those things is a key performance indicator. The key behind anybody spending money on marketing, because it all costs money, and nobody, like, as a small business, starting business, it's a big deal. And if you're going to be watching your budget, you got to know what's working. So figuring out which key performance indicators are valuable to you is kind of the essential part. So if you are doing your social media campaign and you released a video, you spent money to put it out there, and then you have no idea how many people clicked on your stuff and if those people purchased, then you're just throwing money away. So that's the whole thing of creating key performance indicators that you look at and measure. And that can also be daunting for business owners, small business owners. It's also a part where it's like, we try to let them see the value of like, these are things that you need to be looking at. Otherwise you are just throwing money at the wall. I think that's something that we are consistently kind of.
It's that ROI thing, which return on investment. The phrase there, but that's something where there's no guaranteed lots of things, but in this case, you want to try and find the one that the best way you can find something that has a return on investment, and finding those KPIs that work for you, that could even go back to where you're setting your goals for the next month or next year, depending on when you're doing this. And now maybe one of those KPIs is in your goals, so that you can track it better, and you're actually taking time to look at it and go back through and actually evaluate it and analyze it.
Exactly. So kind of, I know we've moved on to the end of kind of the creating the marketing plan thing here. As far as why would you create a marketing plan, what would your assessment be?
The basis, the first thing that the reason I would is because not only does it help you, but it can help your company have an idea of your direction. So the same way a vision statement, those kind of things, helps your company kind of know which direction you're going. It gives them the ability to have kind of a focus on certain things that might be able to help the company. It really has more of an involvement throughout the company if you let your marketing plan go to it, so that everyone can see it, and not just your marketers too. I think that there's times when your chief technology officer might want to know what's going on with your marketing plan, or same with your CFO. I think that you can't it's not just your CMO that should be worrying about this or even putting it together. I think that working in conjunction with all of your C-suite would help this.
Yeah, and I would even drill down into, if you are a self-proprietor, like let's say you are a heck of a potter and you make amazing pots and you try to sell those pots to people. A marketing plan is as simple as holding you accountable. So if you aren't achieving your goals, I want to sell my pots through, a newspaper. And when you start looking at it, nobody is using the newspaper to buy your pots. And it's one of those things to where, like, you can create your goals and you can hold yourself accountable by finding avenues that you can market more effectively, or you can find ways to sell your product or service, or say you sell a service for legal help, or you sell real estate. There's going to be things that you kind of operate on as a self-proprietor, and creating your own individual marketing plan helps you stay accountable, helps fulfill your goals. What is it? Writing down a goal makes it 30% more likely to meet that goal, isn't it? Yeah. I believe it's 30. 90% of statistics are made up, but I did read it's in the 30-ish.
90% of statistics are 90% of your statistics.
We're in a range between 0 and 100% of goals.
It sounds good.
By writing it down. I want it to sound like I read books. So I see a lot of accountability within writing a marketing plan. And that's, I think, I don't know that we can really beat people's ears up any more than we have.
Well, and you've laid it out really simple there. So I think that your post is great. Perfect.
Well, cool. Well, and so yeah, look forward to putting one of these together next week. And I'm out of beer, so.
Are you saying that the people watching will need to contact you? Is that what you're saying, to put one together next week?
Well, hopefully we get some questions.
That's true.
Because this was,
please ask us some questions.
Ask questions so that we can not just, it's better that way. It feels, although this is more of a podcast kind of thing, it helps to have engagement. So, signing off, and thank you.